The first time Clara stepped through the towering iron gates of the Bennett estate, she could feel the weight of 100 unspoken rules pressing down on her shoulders. The mansion rose like a fortress against the gray autumn sky, its marble walls glistening in the rain, and its windows like cold, watchful eyes. Inside those walls lived the woman everyone in the town whispered about, Eleanor Bennett, the wife of one of the wealthiest men in the state. People said she had no mercy, that her words could slice deeper than any blade, and that every maid who worked for her left in tears or disgrace. To many, she was untouchable, wrapped in diamonds and power. Clara, with her worn suitcase and the faint smell of the countryside still clinging to her coat, didn't know it yet, but she was walking straight into the lion's den. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of standing up for what's right, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Kindness Thread. Your support helps us share more powerful, real-life inspired stories that can touch hearts around the world. From the very first day, Clara saw the truth in the rumors. The other staff moved like shadows whenever Eleanor entered the room, their eyes downcast, their voices barely above whispers. Eleanor's heels clicked across the marble floors like a countdown to someone's humiliation. She inspected everything with the precision of a general, and the smallest imperfection, a slightly crooked picture frame, a teacup placed half an inch off-center, could trigger a storm of scorn. Clara watched the way Eleanor's words left bruises invisible to the eye but heavy on the heart. She saw maids wipe away tears in the laundry room, footmen staring at the floor after being berated, the cook trembling when she forgot to garnish a plate exactly as ordered. Clara had not come here by choice. Her mother's illness had drained their savings, and the only position she could find was as a live-in maid in this mansion where wages were high but dignity was cheap. Each day she worked from dawn until well past midnight, scrubbing floors until her hands ached, polishing silver until her fingers went numb. The other maids warned her, never speak unless spoken to, never question Eleanor's orders, and above all, never meet her gaze unless you wanted trouble. Clara followed their advice at first. She stayed quiet, endured the cold glares, and told herself that if she could just last 6 months, she would have enough to help her mother through the winter. But then came the day everything changed. Eleanor was hosting a charity luncheon for the wives of local dignitaries, an event not truly about charity, but about showing off her wealth, influence, and perfect control over everything in her world. The dining hall gleamed under crystal chandeliers, every plate a work of art, every flower arrangement perfectly sculpted. Clara had been assigned to serve water to the guests, a task simple enough, until she accidentally brushed past Eleanor's chair, causing the edge of a lace napkin to slip onto the floor. The room went silent. Eleanor turned to Clara, her smile tight, her eyes glinting with venom. She seized Clara's wrist in front of everyone and, in a voice dripping with scorn, told her she was clumsy, ungrateful, and not fit to serve women of refinement. The humiliation burned in Clara's chest, but something inside her snapped that day. She had spent her life believing that silence was safer, that swallowing your pride was the only way to survive. But now, standing in front of a room full of wealthy women who smirked at her embarrassment, she realized that sometimes silence only feeds cruelty. She straightened her back, met Eleanor's eyes, and, still calm, still respectful, began to speak. She told the room exactly what life was like for the staff in that mansion. She painted a picture of Eleanor's cruelty not with insults, but with the truth, the unpaid overtime, the verbal abuse, the maids driven to tears, the staff living in constant fear. She spoke not as a servant, but as a witness to injustice. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Then, one of the guests, a woman with kind eyes, spoke up, saying she had heard similar stories from other households. Another admitted she'd always wondered why Eleanor's staff changed so frequently. The murmurs grew, glances shifted, and Eleanor's carefully constructed image began to crack in front of the very people whose admiration she depended on. Clara didn't linger to see Eleanor's face, she simply placed the water jug on the table and walked out of the room with her head held high. The aftermath was swift. Word spread through the social circles like wildfire, and though Eleanor tried to twist the narrative, the truth had already taken root. Several of the guests refused to attend her future events. Some even offered Clara other positions, safer, kinder ones. Clara accepted a job at a smaller estate where she was treated with respect, and with her first paycheck, she paid for the medicine her mother so desperately needed. Months later, Clara would hear that Eleanor had become quieter, more cautious in how she spoke to her staff. Perhaps it was pride wounded, perhaps the slow realization that fear is a fragile throne. For Clara, it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had stood up, not just for herself, but for every quiet soul who had been trampled under the weight of someone else's power. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Thread so we can continue bringing you stories that remind the world of the power of courage and compassion. Special request, in the comments, tell us about a time you stood up for yourself or someone else. Your story might inspire someone who needs strength today.
Te fijas en cuál sacaste mejores seguidores, media de stream, de gente, lo que sea. Comparás.
Claro. Bajé mucho de nivel. Estaba en 2500, terminé en 1500, 1200, sí, ahí como vos. Y después empecé a subir. No quiero boludear. Quiero dejar de tomarme. Aunque todo el mundo diga que es un chiste el Premier, quiero dejar de tomármelo como un chiste, boludo. Quiero empezar a subir.
Sí. Sería bueno subir unos puntos.
Sí.
Che, estoy para hacer un roleplay después, ¿eh?
¿Sí?
¿Un 5M? Sí. A mí me re gusta.
Yo roleo de yo. Yeah. A ver esto.
Habría que ver servers. Yo nunca experimenté muchos servers. Alguno que esté bueno, digo. Que sea
Yo tengo
un poco
en
serio.
el bajo roleplay.